That day, nobody said a word in the meeting room, but those silent looks would end up rewriting his entire life. Lucas stared out the office window in Berlin, watching raindrops blur the city. But there was something he didn't know yet. On his desk sat half-written code on his monitor, an open email in the corner, and a cup of cold coffee. The last Slack message kept echoing in his mind. Maybe we should let someone born in Germany handle this. The message was from Jonas, one of his teammates, officially labeled as a joke, complete with a smiley emoji. But Lucas knew something. Some jokes are thin blades that stab right into who you are. And just then, someone knocked. His manager, Martin, stepped in, a middle-aged German man with serious eyes. "Lucas, you're ready for the 3 p.m. client meeting, right?" Lucas nodded. "The presentation's done. Demo's ready," he said, though the insecurity inside him slipped into his voice as a slight tremble. And then the phone rang, about to change everything. Martin paused, studying him. "Listen, this client is important. We need to earn their trust. They're a bit conservative. Try to hide your accent as much as possible when you speak." That sentence echoed inside Lucas. Hide your accent. A polite way of saying, you're not one of us, but let's try to make it work. What would you do? Would you be ashamed of your own voice? Or speak exactly as you are? The fear in that man's eyes. But the real shock was yet to come. Sitting at that table sent his mind back years to when he first arrived in Germany. He had been only 12. When his family moved from Istanbul to Berlin, everything was foreign. The language, the food, the rules, even the silence had its own style here. He remembered his first day of school like it was yesterday. The teacher tried to pronounce his name, got it wrong a few times, and the room filled with shaky laughter. Lukash? Lucas? How do you even read this? Lucas hid his small hands under the desk and whispered, barely audible, Lucas. But there was something he didn't know yet. Days passed. Soccer breaks where nobody picked him, lunch tables where he sat alone, the question, where are you from? Always carrying the hidden message, you're not one of us, right? Eventually, he became obsessed with fixing his German accent. At home, he'd stand in front of the mirror repeating, Guten Tag, not Guten Tag, Guten Tag. His mother would peek through the door and sigh quietly. She had once felt the same helplessness, but there was something he didn't know yet. Hold on, don't miss this part. The thing that kept him going was computers. They had an old, slow laptop. His father had bought it from a flea market. It's not fast, but you're smart. You'll make up the difference, he joked. Lucas spent nights at that machine, learning to code through YouTube videos and free courses. When language failed him, he found refuge in the universal logic of code. Here, he thought, nobody cares where I'm from. It either works or it doesn't. He lay in bed one night, hands covering his face, and prayed. God, he whispered, don't leave me alone here. Show me a path. As tears soaked his pillow, a small decision took root. I won't just be the immigrant kid in this country. I'll exist with my own name, my own faith. And then someone knocked on the door. Years passed. He got into university, studied computer engineering, completed internships. But cultural adaptation didn't end with language. While his classmates went out for beers on weekends, he went to youth programs at the mosque, always feeling like he was balancing on a thin wire stretched between two worlds. Once, during a group project, a friend joked, Lucas, you code faster even when you're fasting. Is that some kind of Muslim superpower? Everyone laughed. Lucas tried to join them, but something inside whispered, what would you have done? Laugh it off or explain? The fear in that man's eyes. And this is exactly where everything shifted. Years later, he landed a job at a prestigious tech company in Berlin. His official title, Senior Software Engineer. But a job title wasn't enough to erase the foreigner label he felt on his skin. During his first week, he overheard two coworkers near the coffee machine. Who's the new guy? The one with the beard? Oh, him? I think he's Turkish or something, but apparently he codes well. Fine, as long as he doesn't bring the rest of it into the office. He knew exactly what the rest of it meant. Hijabi relatives, holiday celebrations, prayer times, his identity. But the real shock was yet to come. Lucas tried to ignore these small stings. What matters is my performance, he told himself. Their assumptions will collapse when they see my work. And truly, he became the most productive developer on the team. He fixed the hardest bugs. He sped up the CI/CD pipeline. He improved an AI module's performance by 40%. Yet Jonas was the one sent to client meetings. You're better with communication, they told him. But Lucas knew it was his accent, his name, his beard. And yet there was something he didn't know yet. You haven't seen anything yet. That day, they had a major presentation for a big bank. Lucas had prepared every technical detail. Before the meeting, Martin called him in. Lucas, I know you carried this project, he said, but the bank's board is old school, so I want Jonas to do most of the talking. You jump in for technical questions. That was the final straw. After years of balancing between cultures, trying to fit without erasing himself, he was still stuck as the smart kid in the background. What would you do? Stay silent? Or take the risk and speak? And then someone knocked. The meeting began in a large glass room with polished tables and glowing screens. Jonas started. ZS say, today we'll present our new AI-based risk analysis system. Everything was smooth until the bank CTO asked a technical question. How does your system minimize error rates under high-volume real-time data processing? Jonas froze. Lucas had built that entire part. Jonas's knowledge was surface level at best. He threw out a few buzzwords, but the CTO wasn't satisfied. Is there someone who can answer that more clearly, he asked, and then the phone call that would change everything. This was the turning point. Martin leaned toward Lucas. Maybe you. Lucas felt his heart race. Years of exclusion, subtle insults, and stay-in-the-background messages crashed on him. But so did all his late-night coding sessions, his whispered prayers, and the hours he'd spent perfecting his skills. He stood up. I can explain this part, he said in German that wasn't perfect but was clear and confident. The CTO nodded. Go ahead. Lucas explained the architecture, data flow, tolerance mechanisms, and the optimization algorithm he'd designed. As he spoke, he felt the room shift. People were no longer listening to his accent, they were listening to his logic. He drew diagrams on the whiteboard, answered follow-up questions calmly and precisely. When he finished, the CTO smiled. This is impressive. Who designed this? The latency optimization especially. Martin hesitated for a split second, but he knew he couldn't hide it anymore. Lucas, he said, he's our lead software engineer. And the document in front of them would change everything. After the meeting, the CTO approached Lucas. I'm a second-generation immigrant too, he said quietly. For years, I was seen as just the tech guy in the back. Today, they saw more than your accent, they saw your mind. Lucas's throat tightened. That simple sentence was the arrival of the person who would save him, someone who had walked the same path, opening an invisible door, but there was something he didn't know yet. You won't believe what happened next. A few weeks later, the bank officially accepted the project and signed a long-term contract. The CEO emailed the entire company praising the team's success and the outstanding technical contribution. At the end, one line stood out. Special thanks to Lucas Mueller for his technical leadership. And that line quietly shifted everything in the office. People no longer saw him as the immigrant engineer, but as the brain behind the project. But the real shock. One day, Jonas approached him by the coffee machine. There was a hint of regret in his eyes. Lucas, he said, about that Slack message, the one where I said someone born in Germany should do this. I want to apologize. It was a stupid joke." Lucas paused. The old hurt stirred inside him. "Yeah," he said softly, "I remember." "I know," Jonas replied, "and I'm starting to realize how much I hurt you. And holding you back during client meetings, that was a huge mistake. Without you, this project wouldn't exist." What would you do? Forgive him or turn your back? The fear in that man's eyes? Lucas took a deep breath. "Look," he said, "I'm not perfect either, but we're in the same boat. Being an immigrant and being successful is already hard. If we drag each other down, we'll never get anywhere." It didn't erase everything, but it was the first warm crack in the ice. You still haven't seen the biggest surprise. Soon after, the company formed a diversity and inclusion committee. HR came to Lucas. "Would you join? You can represent immigrant employees, Muslims, and other minorities better than anyone." At the first meeting, people from different cultures and beliefs sat around a long table. When Lucas shared his story, several eyes filled with tears. "I was born here," he said, "but I've often been made to feel like a guest. My point is this: adapting shouldn't mean abandoning who we are. I'm Muslim, and I'm also part of this country. When I write code, it's not my passport that speaks. It's the algorithm I build." As the security guards approached, one day, a new intern joined the company. His name was Ahmed, quiet, bearded, with a heavy accent. During lunch, he sat next to Lucas. "Working here, is it hard?" he asked. "For people like us?" Lucas smiled. "It's hard," he admitted, "but not impossible. Just know one thing: you'll have to work twice as hard, but don't ever be ashamed of who you are." I tried hiding myself once, but I learned something. If I erase who I am just to be accepted, what I gain isn't success, what I lose is myself. Ahmed nodded. "Do you think I can be like you?" Minus Nain. Lucas looked out the window. Rain was falling over Berlin again, but this time it didn't feel foreign. "One day," he said, "you'll be ahead of me, because now you're starting with a small path that I had to carve myself." And that document would change everything. The company later featured Lucas's story in its internal newsletter. The title read, "The Journey of an Immigrant Engineer, Beating Bias with Code." At the end was a quote from Lucas. "Emak, resented. The Enden Volders. People sometimes expect me to be an ideal immigrant. But all I want is this: a workplace where nobody needs a category like immigrant engineer. Just engineer is enough." Everyone thought that was the end, but the real shock: this wasn't just Lucas's story, it was the story of thousands of Muslim immigrants across Europe. Racism showed up in tiny jokes, looks, the silence of meeting rooms. Cultural integration was painful and required effort from both sides. But Lucas proved something. Performant, when talent, determination, and faith line up, walls start to crack. What would you do? When your accent is mocked, your identity belittled, when people say, "You don't belong here," would you stay silent or keep going quietly but relentlessly? Just when they thought it was over, one evening Lucas took the metro home after a long day and felt those familiar glances. People looked at his beard, his backpack, his tired but determined walk. How many wondered, what does he do for a living? He looked at his reflection in the train window. He was no longer the child ashamed of himself. He was an engineer with a successful career, whose code affected thousands. He whispered to himself, "I'm not here just to fit in. I belong here with my name, my accent, and my faith." Then his phone rang. The voice was familiar, his mother's. "How are you, son? How's work going?" Lucas smiled. "Mom," he said, "guess what? They made me head of the diversity committee today." She got emotional. "We're so proud of you," she said. "You're showing everyone that you can stay Muslim and still succeed." Everyone had finally learned the truth, but the real surprise was this: Lucas's greatest victory wasn't in his paycheck or on his LinkedIn profile. It was the moment he could look in the mirror without shame. And that's when everything truly changed.